If anyone looks real close at Norah, the star she's holding looks a little bit more like a starfish than a decoration. I don't see how that's relevant to anything, but yeah. Uh, Maybe there'll be some context in that as I review this thing. I don't know. Welcome back to Y.E.S, everyone. Today we are talking about I Dream of Christmas by Norah Jones, the first Christmas album by her and the 8th overall. Wow, that's a lot. I really need to figure out how I feel about Norah Jones because the beginning of her career really got me and my family, and I know a lot of other people, super engaged with what she does. And she still has a lot of talents to offer, but there are a lot of moments where I just don't feel as engaged as her debut album and things after that. And this album, unfortunately, is another one of those testaments to it. This is not a bad album, though. It just is really not my cup of tea, necessarily. A lot of the style and production choices made in here are things that I can see that have merit for other people. There is an audience for an album like this. I do not believe I am one of them for a majority of the album. I will highlight some songs in here in a little bit. The thing that I really took from this album is that the pacing for many of the songs, whether it was an original or a cover, it just feels like it's dragged out unnecessarily. Or if it is necessary to bring it down tempo, that it was just done a tad too much, or that maybe there were moments that just didn't need to have that. Like it could have stayed at a good tempo, it didn't need to slow down, or it could have sped up. There's a lot of things in here where I just felt like, is this thing going to drag on any longer? I don't like it when I feel like I want songs to end. I don't like that feeling. I know a fair amount of songs where the beat starts off really well, and then gradually you realize, wait, are we in the 6th minute here? And I know that's a stretch because none of these songs go that long, but some of them do have that feel. And it's not like I can't endure that. I listen to my fair share of jazz and classical music that do extend that amount of time, whether it's through a jazz solo or just of movement here for classical music, and then it needs to move on to another movement and then another movement. And I'm like, yeah, I get the picture. It's in bits, and we're waiting to hear the whole thing. I'm trying not to exaggerate this too much because I'm sure that's not technically true for literally every aspect of this album, but it's just something that bothered me because I felt like I was enduring this album more than I was enjoying it, unfortunately. Now that style can pay off a little bit for a few of the songs in here. In order to demonstrate that, I will put out my highlights first. The first one I will highlight is Christmas Glow.
Christmas glow, give me that Christmas glow.
This is one of the originals by Norah here, and it made me happy. I think that adding her own personal touch in here was well crafted, and she didn't have to overdo this one. Despite the moderately slow tempo here, I didn't really find a fault with this one. Another original I would like to just highlight super quick is Christmas Calling, Jolly Jones.
I want a happy holiday for Christmas.
This is a perfectly good way to get me hooked in initially for the album, so that worked out also pretty well. Her jazzy rendition of White Christmas really has a pretty strong take on the bass being played here, and maybe it's not like that noticeable to everyone else, but I did, and I just appreciated that it had enough power to be able to say, pay attention, and this song just worked out for her. And near the end of the album, we have her rendition of Run Rudolph Run. Another one where It is taken down tempo pretty well. And I don't know, something about this rendition just made me think, it's kind of ironic that every time I hear this song, I automatically think of the airport scene in Home Alone and how much of a dash they're in. But in this version, it's just like, yeah, run, run, Rudolph. But, just like, go with the flow of this song. Like, that's kind of how it feels, and it's just a funny irony, I guess. Now, for the songs that I felt didn't do such a hot job with that tempo idea I mentioned earlier. Blue Christmas. Yeah, that song that is most well known for Elvis singing it. It is usually one of those slower songs. It's got a little beat to it when Elvis plays it, but this one just feels a little bit ridiculous. I don't understand how this tempo, the song originally in the form that we expect it to be, feels just dragged out. I'm very perplexed by that. Right after that, she has her own original song called It's Only Christmas Once a Year. I can't really express my surprised disappointment with this one very well. So unfortunately, I have to go on to the next one. I wrote down in my notes also that Winter Wonderland was dragged out way unnecessarily for its own good in here. Just going down almost the rest of the second half of the album, there just are small things that lose me. My engagement is just kind of like, I don't know about that. And I am struggling here to be able to try and make a balanced justification because there's so much of this album that is perfectly fine and okay. But there's a lot of it that just is screaming to say, I want to be better than that. I really don't have a lot of energy when talking about this one because I just listened to it the first time and then realized, I don't know if I heard too many things that were special to me personally. And then when I gave it the second listen, I was just like, about 2/3 of the way, like I just knew, like, we have to get through this. Let's get this over with. And I am very upset to be able to say that. Regardless of what I think in this review, someone out there I think is going to like this album somehow. Maybe it is, in fact, maybe a good album for a jazz coffee club or something like that. I don't know, but I am not trying to tear this album down for a lot of other musical qualities that it has. I just feel like so much of this album doesn't try or is not ambitious. I mean, it can be for the style that Norah is doing here, but it just doesn't have that feel to it. The idea perhaps, but the feel, not really. So, after having listened and reviewed this album with the following grades in the following categories here, how would I recommend this album? I am going to give it a good. I feel like that's going to surprise a lot of people, but I just know I can't knock it down in a recommendation, at least, for anything less necessarily. I genuinely believe this album is not bad. I genuinely believe that. I just know that there is an audience out there for this album. I can't tear this album down because of all the other good musical qualities that it does have inside of it. But this isn't an album that I will return to as a whole. I think those 4 tracks I mentioned, that's probably it. And everything else, like, well, if Norah plays, maybe it will sound better live. I don't know. But no matter what, I don't want to discourage Norah from making music. I'm just saying I am longing for something where I feel like I'm going to be genuinely thrilled to listen to again. And that's just me. That's just one of your fans. But I do state that I am still a fan. So that's what I gotta say, I guess. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow me in my social media links down in the description below. And remember to subscribe so you can come back here to discover, promote, and review the best in entertainment that'll make you say yes. See you next time.
Instead of feeling all alone this Christmas.